Welcome back. I think what we want to do with this episode is kind of bring together a lot of different themes and kind of see how our family matches with your family, because my guess is we can bring out a few things. Let me turn it over to the big kids, mom and dad. You've just come back to India. How do you see it changing? I remember you telling me that it was a tough life, right? But I think India, which we see, is very different. And I've been seeing it obviously for my whole life. And I would say the last 20 years in India have been night and day, right? Versus what we grew up with. Now imagine these guys have been here 13 years, right? And they've certainly enjoyed some luxuries which we didn't have. You certainly, but even us, right?
Some is an understatement.
That's okay. You should never be, afraid of accepting who you are. You just shouldn't be entitled in saying that it's not just for you, it's for everyone, right? That you're giving back to humanity. You can't make an excuse for that. There's no choice you had in the matter and where you were born. But for you guys, coming back to India must have been interesting in that you're seeing a different sort of picturization. And even in the time we've been here in 13 years, from where we started to where we are, what's your thought and how does that factor into the child rearing? Because it wasn't easy for us, it wasn't easy for you. How do you think it's changed when we were younger versus what we had to do with that?
We had absolutely no help. Everything you had to do from morning till night.
You're talking in the US.
In US, no, even here. We were growing up in Hindu colony. I watched my mom. She was caring for my dad's 9 siblings that came slowly to our house. So we never thought we had everything to ourselves. We had to share it with everybody, right? Uncles and aunts and who live with us. And now when I see them all grown up, and that was my lesson from learning from my mom, how to live in the family, to be giving, to share everything.
Which is an interesting point you make, because as the world gets more complex, whether it's India or in the US, nuclear families have kind of gone the way of the dinosaur.
Yep.
So how does that play a role in that you guys are there, we're here, and they're in their apartments, right? And I think this will be a continuing theme where the families aren't together. How do you stay in touch?
Well, I want them to, that's why I keep begging them to come. I keep begging them to call me every time. All 5 of them. I make a point to call all of you once a week, just to be in touch with you. I don't care if I don't talk to Seema or Ram.
That's crazy.
I need to talk to you guys to see what I know what's happening in their life because it's there.
पूरा जस्ती प्रेम
I
कुशल
know what's
करते यार
Yeah.
तुमसे बोला है
बोला नहीं माकड़.
And how about you, Dad? What are the thoughts that you have on this?
बाबा
You are talking about the comparison between how we were and how it had changed now.
Well, 2 questions. One is that,
Sure.
right? You growing up, because you've been in 3 different continents, in a sense, right? Not really 3, it's 2. But you grew up here, then you were in the UK, then you were in the US. So 3 continents. The second part of that question is, how have you seen us grow up versus them? And how have you seen the evolution in the India picture? Because India is not the same India which you grew up in, obviously.
Sure.
Right? And for that matter, nor is the US. Right? But what do you see? So the first question is, how do you see 3 continents and what was that transition?
Talking about life here, I was in Dadar, and from Dadar high school, I went to Fort every day to Elphinstone College. That was really a bad choice and good choice because Elphinstone is one of the best colleges. But traveling was such a difficult thing.
And how did you
go from
train or?
Yeah, from Shivaji Park, I go to the other station walking, and then you go by locals, and whenever you stand in front of the gate, there are all these office guys and students going in. You have to make sure you don't get out on the other side. And then after the journey up to Churchgate, then I had to walk along past the Rajabhai Tower to Elphinstone. So it was quite a trying period. But Elphinstone.
How old were you then?
I may be about 17 or something.
Okay.
But then after doing that for 2 years, F1 intern, I had a choice. I had to decide which college I will go. I preferred engineering. And then in engineering, I could have gone to VJTI, but there again, I had to go from Shivaji Park to the bus station, then take the bus to the college. So I was very afraid of the travel. So I decided to go to Pune Engineering, which is you live in the hostel and just walk there. Plus, they had a boat club, so I could do the boating there too. So it was really
I
nice.
said that at least you learned a lot. I walked 22 years of my life one road because I lived in the third lane. Fourth lane was the Shishu Vihar. Fifth lane was the first grade to fifth. Sixth lane was sixth grade to 12th. And just walked few more steps and I was in Ramtara Ria College.
But is that because where you live,
Locations.
where you live had that?
Right. She was in Hindu colony.
Because a lot of people live in places they don't have that kind
No,
of.
no, no. This is all the Hindu colony, 6 lanes had that facility.
Got it.
You know, they had the Shishu Vihar, they had the one, that, and 22 years.
And
Only time I learned I never bought a ticket on the train. I never went by train. Wow. So I don't even know how to buy a train.
No, but one of
On
the
the
things.
bus, I went to Sion Hospital. I was a medical technician, right?
Oh.
And that was the only journey I had taken by bus.
Wow.
Until I
Really?
married him. And then
When I was in college, I used to
Well-
go bus and then take a train.
then the ship. That was adventure.
Yeah.
I think in one way I feel that she was very lucky. She didn't have to go through
Lucky or not.
good, actually.
hardship.
Yeah, that's good, actually.
But in my case, looking back, you learn how the people travel, how hard the life is,
Yes.
and probably it makes you a little tougher. And then you have to study and get the grades, and that teaches you to be a little more stronger.
But
In
one thing I was going to say that you're 17 and 18 is their equivalent of high school.
right,
Yes.
It's for you, I guess, junior college, and then
Yeah,
you
they have
go to
to-
college.
I
Right?
find
Yes.
But
So I-
see, our advantage was that we always lived with our parents.
Yes.
yeah.
Even in
Absolutely.
college, we always lived with our parents.
Yeah.
But for them, it's very different.
No, but I
You're living
didn't.
on your own.
They're-
Pune Engineering was 3
Yeah,
years in a
you were in the
hostel.
hostel.
That's not so
Yeah.
bad.
But in you're
Not really.
other up to a filter and still I get with the
groceries
parents.
and learn what you want to eat, you want to save or whatever you want to do, how much you want to eat. You don't want to overcook, then leftover and waste. You learn that right from high school,
Hmm.
right after the high school.
Yeah.
We didn't.
So I would say that's one thing in making the transition from India to the UK and then UK to the US that you learned that how do you live on your own?
Yes.
Because in India, if you had no help, you had family at least.
Yeah.
In the US, you had nothing,
Nothing.
right? So how was that in 73 when you went there?
73 was different, but before that, going to London was difficult
Yeah.
Okay.
because there we had to start right from the start.
Mm.
I started working 10th day I was there. So to live in thing, trying to find station, get the train, go to the right place, go to the work and come back and then again worry about cooking.
Right.
Because I used to cook. My mother made me cook every evening. That was my job except rotis that she will make. So at least cooking I knew.
But do you think that it was more a patriarchal family? Meaning father was in charge, the breadwinner at home. And,
Always.
And you, so this is a very interesting question because we get it. Nowadays, marriage is more like a partnership, right? And I'm going on a tangent for a reason that you each have roles, right? The husband and wife, they work.
Yeah, second partner will always be equal to you.
But in
Not
India,
below you.
not necessarily the case, where back then at least,
Yes.
the woman often was relegated to home and the home civil engineer and the regular civil engineer. And nowadays, I think it's a partnership where both of you carry weight and carry the water. Do you think when you went to the US, that all changed, right?
It did change.
Not US even.
Even London.
Even in London.
I went to London to
Ah.
Imperial, and there my experience of traveling and different things was helpful. But after we got married, she was working and I was working. So it was a little different to how our
To the
patriarchal
usual
families live.
couples at that
Every day was a learning
Yeah,
experience,
well,
something new.
And so how did that change your perspective from your parents, where you had a nuclear family, you had lots of uncles and aunts and other people helping raise people, you guys, to a situation where you really didn't have anyone in London,
no.
right? And then when you went to the US, even less so.
1965, when I landed, there were hardly any Indians. Hardly.
Hmm.
Well, you had to walk probably 2 miles before you can come across another Indian.
Which now it's almost Little India. 30% of
Totally.
India or London proper is Indian. And then go to the US, right? And we've talked about all these immigrant situations and all of these interesting things. I would say the US founded it with the Statue of Liberty asking for, give me your tired, you're poor, you're hungry, and I'll show you the world. And, you know, each generation of immigrants made the country stronger. And you guys were one of those generations, right? And we were not zero. We were, I guess, I don't think we were second generation because,
Yeah.
right, coming to the US. And these guys would be first generation because I was born in London and then we moved to the US, right? So I wasn't zero generation there. You were first or zero, whatever. I don't know how you call
No, they
it.
were born in US, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
1.5.
I guess my point that I'm getting at is in the US, you had no help. You became kind of self-aware and independent. How was that
Absolutely.
as a transition for you?
It was very good.
It was tough.
No, initially,
He can say
Different
easily
way.
Two
he goes to
different
work.
perspectives.
No,
Perspective
because
from
he
the
goes to
woman's
work.
point of view.
Exactly.
And perspective from
He goes to work, he comes back from the work.
Yes.
I'm home, so I have to think of everything else.
But
Yeah.
how much of the work? So this is
Feeding children, getting them from school, taking them to school, washing the laundry, everything that needs to be done until he got home to eat.
a lot of people are asking. You went from a patriarchal society to one where it was more evenly matched, but you were still doing the matriarchal work, right? And so that's not the case with us. We have an equal share, although each of us is very strong in some disciplines or others, and we kind of relegate or defer to the other person.
See, I think with every generation, you become forward thinking, right? Like,
Is it
from
forward or
that-
is it backward? I don't know.
no, it's always forward. Like when you think of everything as an equal,
Ah,
that's a way
okay.
forward.
Many people think in many directions, huh?
So,
Like,
you know, to the point, even at this age, we have work divided. I take care of everything else. He'll take care of the finances. I won't even interfere in.
So you have like work, like you have chores, like we used to give the
Yeah.
kids. His chores are different.
Yeah,
Your chores are
his chores
different,
are
and that's how
And-
you.
in our case, what happened was, in India, my mother will be doing the house chores, as you mentioned. They're purely doing the housework, looking after the
Right.
kids. And when we went to London, Anu worked because she was a laboratory technologist. She worked in Hempstead Hospital, which was full of Nobel Prize winners. But at the same time, she was doing the work of looking after the kids. When they go to school, she will be more looking into those things, which is different to what we have here before. And then when we went to the US, that became a little more difficult for her because she was doing real estate. She changed into real estate. So that becomes any time job. And so that's the transition.
Yeah, the transition was there, but I had his help.
Right.
I did the work during the day when they were in school. When they came from school, they were doing their studies always. 6 o'clock we'll eat dinner.
That they
Then
means
he'll
you
take
have
over,
people.
and I'll go out to sell the real estate.
Right.
So,
So that worked out.
so this is an interesting puzzle. Now we've got fast forward, right? We've gone away from a nuclear family. We've gone away from a patriarchal family, and many parts of India are patriarchal still. If you go to the north, I hate to say it, that it's related to educational basis or moving forward, as you say. Some people will, you know, basically descend from that. They'll say they don't agree that it's forward because what's wrong with the woman staying home? I don't agree with that. I agree with you. I agree.
No, I think because now education is very important, and both the woman and the man are educated and they want to do something
So they're partners.
with that education. They want to be professionals. They want to,
Yeah.
The
take
individual's
forward.
goals and
To
aspirations.
survive, you need both incomes. Right. Everything is, or the prices are up. Just getting a place to live, even on rent, is so difficult now.
And is
Everything
that mainly in the
up.
metros or in the rural areas too?
I think it's everywhere
Yeah.
because people want a better life.
So,
You know.
so here's the next question. Coming back to India, do you think it's still better in the US?
I enjoy what I'm staying here, but I miss my home.
Huh.
Yeah.
I guess
That's their home for the last 45 years.
I think the comment that I would make is India, you can comment on better than I can because you're looking from the outside, but it's changed dramatically.
Oh, totally.
And opportunity
More
is
opportunity.
there.
Absolutely.
Hope is there.
Yeah. Yes.
And so I would say this has become quite an interesting place for many of us because I think 1.412 billion people speak as one. We're at peace with everyone and we're kind of doing things which matter. Before we used to outsource all of our stuff to other countries. Now all of a sudden people are building in India for India and taking it to the world. If you had to tell your younger self a nice little pearl of wisdom, what would that be for the big kids?
For coming back.
No, I'm saying in general, looking at your life, it's a tough one because it's dynamic, right? It's full of change. What it was 60 years ago, 80 years ago versus what it is now. What would you say to that person?
I think, but there, when we, at my stage or at that time, there was only one way. You will have to go to England or US to study. All opportunities
So
are
no
better.
choices, what you said.
Better opportunities are outside. And overall, I think we reap the benefit of doing that
Totally.
because we got good opportunities. One of the things I would tell everyone, and I know these two are doing also, you have to work very hard at whatever you're doing.
I love that.
The second thing is now, because it's an open environment, India has progressed so much in so many years that you compare different countries and different opportunities and then be open-minded. Don't be closed-minded that my parents did this, so I'm going to follow that because they are successful. And that's what I would suggest, that look at more open-mindedly. Do not get in a circle
Yeah.
and in the normal, the previous thinking, and that will help you in the long run.
I think that's very well said. And I think the earth's no longer flat, never was, but the point is that you see what it is and then you decide. And what did you learn from this episode?
What did I learn? What is to be a family? And we all have different experiences. And we just pass it on, our wisdom, to you.
And did you get some from us too?
Oh, yes.
And how about you, Dan? What did you learn from this?
I think it's.
And what did you impart to this?
I think
What's your take home?
the same thoughts as Anu said, and I'm really happy that how you managed the things, you both of you, and how they took it up from there. Because you may manage, but then the results are not always the same. Credit goes to both of you.
And I would echo that by saying every generation has their challenges. It's not straightforward in the least bit. And you should never judge what others have done or make a comment on previous things. You may have resentment, you may have all kinds of stuff, but ultimately take the good and the bad, but more than that, take the responsibility for yourselves. Because going forward, it's all about what you do and how you create impact. And they can only go on the information that they had, that we had, that you had. And look, they didn't face the same challenges as we did, as you did. You had a pandemic that you went through, right? We had a travel. I came on a boat to the US, right? I was a British citizen now, a US citizen, all of that. And we faced a different immigrant journey than you faced, and you faced reverse immigration in that you came back to India, right? So I would say for all of us, this was an important one. And I suspect you at home would feel the same way. How about you? Anything to add?
I think whatever ups and downs, sideways, this way in life, I think it's all worth the while if we all are together.
Oh, yeah.
Finally.
Agreed.
Nicely said. Thanks for joining us as always. And we appreciate all of your kind words and everything you've given back to us on the channel. And let us know if we're hitting on the right topics. And we'll see you in the next one.